Corporate governance fails when administration is mistaken for active leadership. Holding a formal title and issuing directives provides authority, but it does not influence the actual output of the organization. Quality mandates and policy documents frequently cascade down the organizational chart without changing frontline behavior. These documents lose their operational relevance as they move further from the boardroom. This gap reveals a hard truth about organizational behavior. Performance and compliance are separate metrics. A system can follow every written rule and still fail to produce actual value. Effective systems require administrative leadership, the use of formal authority to support and scale ground-level interpersonal influence. Even an ISO-certified company with flawless documentation faces operational collapse if its leadership relies exclusively on administrative decree to manage work they do not see. Consultant Sidney Yoshida quantified this disconnect in a 1989 study that remains the primary evidence for executive isolation in large systems. Yoshida's iceberg with ignorance shows that top-tier managers typically perceive only 4% of an organization's systemic problems. These are usually limited to high-level strategic issues. Middle management generally perceives 9% of problems, while supervisors, who work directly with the teams, perceive 74%. Frontline employees understand 100% of the daily workflow bottlenecks, equipment failures, and inefficient routing. The data shows that 96% of the friction preventing a company from functioning remains invisible to the people responsible for writing the policies. Total quality management fails when the system is structurally blind. Executive management cannot fix the operational friction that they do not see. The operational solution to this executive blind spot is the Gemba walk, a strict commitment to direct observation. The Gemba is the physical or digital location where the work actually happens and where value is created for the customer. Quality management requires leadership to bypass standard reporting hierarchies and observe this environment firsthand to see the reality of production. During a Gemba walk, the focus is on the process, not the person. Leaders ask, why is the process failing, to identify systemic flaws rather than individual errors. Executives at companies like Toyota institutionalized this practice. By going to the floor, they gathered the raw, unfiltered data needed to drive elite manufacturing standards. This practice transforms executive leadership from abstract policymaking into a rigorous data-gathering mechanism. Gathering raw data from the floor is only the first step. That information must be processed through a framework that forces organizational change. The Burke-Litwin causal model provides this framework. It divides the organization into two layers, transformational and transactional. The transformational layer manages the relationship between the external environment, the organization's mission, its leadership, and its culture. Leadership's role is to take external pressures and Gemba data and use them to shift the organizational culture. The lower transactional layers, which include management practices and daily operating systems, are designed for stability and often resist new quality initiatives. Without continuous active pressure from the top layer, these transactional systems will quickly revert to their previous state. Leadership uses Gemba observations to force structural changes in the mission and culture, making quality improvements a permanent part of the system. To execute these macro-level changes, the focus must move to the individual employee and the engine that manages them, human resources. Human resources serves as the primary strategic engine of the company, as it manages the people who operate every financial, informational, and technological asset. HR manages the employee performance equation to ensure the changes dictated by the Burke-Litwin model are actually executed. On the left is employee capability, the inherent knowledge and skills the individual brings to the role. On the right is organizational enablement. This covers the tools, authority, and resources that management provides. If leadership demands a new quality standard but fails to provide the enablement discovered during the Gemba walk, the scale tips and performance drops. When an employee lacks the necessary resources to meet a mandate, their cost in salary and overhead will eventually exceed their actual output. You cannot extract high-performance quality metrics from an under-resourced operation. Once an employee is enabled, their output is evaluated against two specific parameters of total quality management. The first is effectiveness, achieving planned goals, or doing the right things. The second is efficiency, optimizing resource consumption, or doing things right. We plot these on a matrix to categorize the health of every workflow. The bottom left quadrant is ineffective and inefficient. This is a system failure that requires immediate intervention. Those who are effective but inefficient hit their targets but burn too many resources. They require specific skills training to reduce waste. Units that are efficient but ineffective optimize their resources but apply them to the wrong goals. They require strategic redirection. The top right quadrant is both effective and efficient. This is the only target zone for TQM, where leadership should delegate and empower. TQM relies on mathematically locating every department, workflow, and individual on this grid, replacing intuition with a data-driven map. Once a unit's location is known, management applies strategies to move them to the top right quadrant. The first pathway holds inputs steady while increasing outputs through better process mapping. The second pathway decreases inputs while holding outputs steady by eliminating waste. The third involves a 10% input increase to achieve a 50% output increase, usually through technological investments. These surgical, mathematical pathways stand in contrast to blind, across-the-board cost-cutting. Quality management scales output through systemic redesign, rather than demanding more physical effort from the workforce. This circular loop connects the entire architecture. Gemba data informs the Burke-Litwin strategy, which drives HR enablement, resulting in measurable effectiveness and efficiency. The metrics from this final stage flow back to management, identifying where the next Gemba walk must take place. Total quality management is a living, continuous, data-driven cycle that requires constant kinetic energy to remain truly effective. Administrative authority can write the policies, but only active, data-driven leadership can execute them. To improve the organization, leadership must leave the boardroom, measure the reality of the floor, and align the human engine to execute the change.